Welcome to Movie and a Beer, everybody. This is Dan bringing us in. We have a surprise Christmas film to share with everyone over this holiday season.
You're spoiling it immediately.
I'm immediately spoiling the crap out of this because no one's going to watch it. But we have our usual three awesome co-hosts and friends with us to discuss this crazy thing.
Hey, thank you for joining us, dear listener. This is Aaron. I am your telecommunications expert.
Hi there, listeners. I'm Blake. I'm your Freako expert. Yeah.
And I'm Brian, your mid-movie nap expert.
Yeah. Which multiple people did take naps during the making. And
not me. I was riveted.
Yeah, no.
Like watching a Christopher Nolan
film.
film.
You laughed the whole time.
God, it's so
all right,
good.
Frankie Freako.
A 2024 film.
Yeah.
From the people who brought you Psycho Gorman.
Yeah.
Movie and a Beer, recent release.
Yeah. Writer director Steven Kostanski.
I don't know if we should name names here.
Kostanski.
Kostanski.
All right.
Kostanski.
Okay. So we knew what we were watching ahead of time, and
Blake
we
did.
decided to maybe go stop at wonderful beer mongers in Southeast Portland and picked up beers based on the fact that this does have like a demon gremlin-y
Like creepy puppet fritters looking little dude, a little garbage pail kids kind of going on.
That sort of aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we found some beers, one from Obelisk Brewing, which is out of Astoria, and the other...
And we also really enjoyed hanging out there.
Yeah, it was a cool place. And the other is called Endless Depths, and it's a sour done by, I believe, Abomination Brewing, which is out of New Haven, Connecticut.
That can refer to the endless depths of film that you can find when searching Dan's Plex.
Well, I mean, the endless depths of weird 80s era... It's like a combination of
it's a set of
practical
films.
Yeah, it's like practical effects with bad puppetry and the occasional like sped up like melting wax thing.
A quick synopsis here. We've got a workaholic, kind of boring, like staid office worker who for a variety of reasons feels like he maybe needs to spice up his life a little bit.
He's happy with his life, but his boss points out his presentations are dull. His wife points out you're not very exciting.
And I would say that like there's like different relationships have dissatisfaction in them, and that's why he becomes unhappy. And tries to have this moment of self-reflection, self-improvement that goes awry.
Yeah. When he sees a television ad for a phone line where he can call Frankie Freako for $1.99 for the first minute and then 99 cents for the following minute.
Which is one of about 400,000 callbacks to the late 80s or early 90s that are in this film.
Late night party hotline.
Yeah, late night party. Call us now and we'll get Frankie Freako to party with. Like, if you're of a certain age, you remember those late night TV ads.
Just so I don't forget, Connor Sweeney plays Connor, who is the lead in this film. He hasn't done a lot, mostly writing and directing. He was in Father's Day, Divorced Dad, smaller films.
Smaller films.
Yeah, smaller films that look also a little grindhousey.
He's a hopeless square that his idea of wild sex with his wife, Christina, played by Christy Woodsworth, consists solely of them touching index fingers.
Holding hands.
He is like phone home.
Well, see, the way they write it sounds like E.T., but we watched them hold hands, and he is satisfied with that. And I'll leave it at that.
Very much so. So there's
I broke Aaron.
There's a lot of interesting visual effects that they use. I want to go back to the practicality of what they're doing, and I'm waving my arms around.
We can lead into this by saying he calls the number, gets the Freakos there, and the Freakos are portrayed by horrifying live puppets.
Yeah.
So
they're kind of rubber.
Yeah, like rubber
mannequin.
I think well designed. Like the three of them we see all the time, like look interesting to look at, but they're horrifying little monsters.
It may be by intention, but I would say that the puppetry is not great.
Well, the puppetry is bad.
Skillful.
I'm saying the look of the Freakos.
Character design.
Yeah.
Character design is good.
Yeah, the way they move is awful.
But this film is an homage to things like Chucky, Gremlins.
I would say maybe E.T.
Like Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Like
kind
going
of
into this parallel.
I would say more kind of the Toxic Avenger kind of schlocky.
Yeah.
Who Framed the Toxic Avenger? Yes, the film we all know.
There's a bunch of films from the 80s that came out besides the Gremlins. Ghoulies.
Oh yeah, Ghoulies love coming out of the
real
toilet.
Similar kind of vibe. Critters, similar vibe. Munchies, I'd not heard of that one.
Quick piece of trivia. You know who loves the Ghoulies? The Flophouse podcast, and the Flophouse host voiced the Freako killers, the robots in this movie.
Yeah.
Follow the podcast.
They have little puppet robots.
I can hear Stuart Wellington and Dan McCoy and Elliot Kalin in each robot voice. It was fun.
Awesome. So, if to ask a question, is the audience for this film, Frankie Freako, is it people who look back with nostalgia onto these earlier like 80s movies? I believe
so. The people who love it's people of a certain age, so
right,
like 40s and older,
old dudes,
who would just watch these like B and C movies for fun because that's what there is to do on a Friday or Saturday night
in 1988.
Or like if you're like me in like high school and discovering, oh man, there's terrible fun movies that I can just find on Comedy Central. Phenomenal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would ask the question then though. Why don't you go back to the original source material? Why would you watch this film?
Because you've seen them all.
Because
many times.
If you enjoy I think
that's a fair point.
Late night movies, why wouldn't you watch one of the originals rather than this that's a parody?
I think Dan has it where this is for people who have watched all of them all the time. I would honestly say this feels like I would agree with Dan, like an homage, a love letter to that era of film. That someone who's has some modest budget and said, I want to make this particular thing.
I love how I called an homage 3 minutes ago and you agreed with me then.
Well, you fell asleep during the movie and you hate this.
That's not exactly true. I mostly fell asleep and I totally hate this.
3 of us sort of fell asleep at different points.
So, listener, just so you know, the one person on this podcast really loves this film. The rest of us are like tolerating it.
We tolerated. We had interesting beers to go with it, so we tolerated. So again, I want to go back to the fact that they combined 2D special effects, kind of just post production,
about the computer
stuff. Yeah, just really cheesy, but 80s era style.
It felt very weird science.
Yeah, and then it's like then they're suddenly in a cityscape that's obviously to scale, super small, and you have these. They're basically just clay figures in a set.
Models with stop motion.
That felt like, and this will be a weird pull. That felt like Monkey Bone to me, because if you've never seen the movie, Brendan Fraser gets pulled into his own psyche, and there's like similar puppety figures, dreamscape stuff. It felt similar to that.
What I think stop motion famously is like really painstaking, time intensive, and expensive to do. So I mean, there was certainly a budget for this film to do all that stop motion, and then there is practical effects with the puppets, and they also had to find something in the budget to get that dot matrix printer that still worked.
Yeah, like they dug that out.
I mean, they may have just had someone feeding it through a thing and not
and using the sound effects. Sure. Yeah.
So sound design, a lot of music going on during that was being played by one of the Freakos. He had a boombox and he was playing. So, but then there was also background music during some of the scenes.
Right, yeah.
And stuff.
There was regular score, and then there was also music coming from within the scene.
Yeah,
but none of it. They didn't have the budget to pay for real well-known songs, so probably local bands, whatever. Something found in the 99-cent bin.
Yeah, totally. And I think they did a pretty successful job in matching up the sound effects, probably post-production. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on the screen. There was a lot of things being hit, smacked. There was gunfire.
Yeah, the
walls getting
sound design was good and adequate. I wouldn't say it was great.
That's fair.
The ADR, so that's automatic dialogue replacement, where the actors re-record their dialogue later. For example, when they're in a noisy environment, that was extremely sloppy.
It was.
There's a scene where the main character is driving in a car and talking.
Yeah,
and if he was actually driving, it's really noisy. So they did ADR, and his lips did not sync up with the words at all.
You could tell.
And in fact, in the actual scene, he said a couple extra things that they never recorded. Now, that may have been part of the film as parody.
Like, that's what I was going to ask. Do you think that was purposeful, or they just ran out of budget making these stop motion Uber Munch? I'll spoil that part, like Uber Munch melting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was They ran out of budget. They just didn't have the time to be careful with that.
So it doesn't feel like Black Dynamite where they're doing like boom mic in the shot and clearly people messing up, because that's the vibe of Black Dynamite is shoestring budget, blaxploitation martial arts movie. This is, I think, like Dan said, more of like, and Aaron, when he wasn't snoozing, more of an homage to the schlocky 80s little guy horror movie, but also it's a party movie, which feels like 80s college style.
Kind of party, kind of.
Freakos love to
Super
party.
violent though.
Well, so I think there's a genre of film where like somebody has this like dissatisfied life, and then there's a pivotal event that changes who they are.
That makes that square a real hep cat.
Right, and it could be somebody who's a square that becomes a little more fun.
Yeah, kind of Revenge of the Nerds.
Right.
A little bit, yeah.
Right. But yeah, so there's definitely that element to this movie.
Or even Weird Science, which you mentioned earlier.
That's true. Yeah,
That's kind of the special thing.
Yeah.
These
the nerdy guy.
These nerds get the girls they like
yeah.
because they use their weird science, and we have the wacky special effects.
But this is like an established adult. This is like a grown ass man who is like
he's working in
sitting
an office,
yeah,
who's got
using his big
issues.
phone, his big computer to make
With a gigantic
bland,
basement.
to make a bland presentation.
right.
With party hats. He tried.
He tried.
Yeah.
But he was talking about the square number, right? Or something.
A square subdivision.
Who was it that pointed
The
out the
squares.
square shirt and the square
That was me.
tie? That was a beautiful.
That was before I fell asleep.
That was a pivotal. You fell asleep.
Yeah, so listener, I fell asleep during this movie, and I think I actually enjoyed myself more when I was asleep.
In Aaron's defense, we did get a couple of bevies before this and big hearty meals.
Yeah.
It's not
But,
totally the movie that put me to sleep.
but-
all right.
But because his boss called him a square, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They said square, and then they show him in the presentation square on square, making a presentation with squares. Like, it's very poignantly. We're making the point. This guy is boring.
Yeah, this guy really needs help. We can understand why he needs help.
Yeah.
He's
That's why
very
they call
much
those-
in a rut.
But
That's why he called those hot freakos.
yeah, but the simple fact that the boss went home with him.
Yeah,
Creepy as
the
hell.
boss, and he says that thing about it, and he wants to frame him for fraud. He's telling him, "I'm going to get you on camera, shredding this
Right.
documents."
Yeah, so this boss is like two-faced. So listener, understand the boss is like
With his sweet ponytail.
telling our protagonist, like, you're going to get a promotion, you're working hard, this is all very important, what you're doing. But then also, it's very obvious that this boss is using the protagonist for the boss's own ends. Like, the boss is not really to be trusted.
I think that's why we're supposed to feel okay that he gets covered in glue and then stuck to the basement for the rest of the film.
Yeah. Like, who has a bear trap, an actual real working bear trap in their basement?
Well, I won't say
Like,
this, but
what
we
the
know
hell?
we
The
know
film is from
why.
Canada, guys. Maybe they got
That's
no.
true.
This is
Canadians
true.
love glue,
and bears
gluing bears to traps.
And bears.
and bear glue.
Doubles.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm like, so he got covered in glue and he laid there because his foot was stuck in a bear trap, and then just this like extra amount of glue on him. It was like,
But not
it
his
was
face
interesting.
convenient.
Not his face.
It was gratuitous.
It was a little
It was-
gratuitous.
no, the word you're looking for is cartoonish.
Yes, it was cartoonish.
It's felt like watching a live cartoon.
Kind of in some ways with the characters and what they were doing on the screen, and
Right.
a lot of sight gag kind of violence and humor mixed together.
Very slapstick.
Well, so the soda they had was called Fart Cola, and
With caffeine.
and with caffeine,
When you open it, what's the sound it makes when you open it, Aaron?
it makes a fart sound. And so the protagonist doesn't want to drink this because it has caffeine, and
What a
that's like
square.
that's too wild for him.
But also-
or eat pizza, or
But
hot
he
dogs.
he actually was going to get legitimate pizza as his like regular weekend thing. But like that's the kind of level of humor I feel that kind of prevails throughout the entirety of the film. Is fart cola level humor,
It's not high comedy. It's made for laughs.
right?
In an interview with I think Rob Paulson, talking about Spaceballs for the Dinks, the little sand people. He told he pitched to Mel Brooks, infamous comedy legend. Hey, what if we called one Gunga Dink? And supposedly, allegedly, Mel Brooks told him, "Kid, wit is shit, but funny is money." And this is funny, guys. I don't care what you all say. I think this movie's hilarious.
All right.
It's broad. It's silly.
I
it's
actually
dumb.
like Gunga
I do
Dink a
too.
lot.
It's really
kinda-
funny.
yeah.
But Mel Brooks just said, nah, just go broad.
That's why they have guys combing the desert with a giant comb. It's
Yeah.
very silly.
Right.
So my take on this, it is very funny in 10-minute increments.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair.
I would say we were all laughing at different parts,
That's true.
but after a certain point, 3 of the 4 of us fell asleep during this film.
That's also true.
So the comedy was not different enough throughout to enthrall us.
Yeah, the pacing was weird. It felt like they made 3 to 4 short films and then put them together. This did feel like it was built to be, we're going to drop like one part on YouTube and then drop the next part later and the next part later. But they made it one film because each quarter feels different.
Well, I was going to say, it actually kind of felt one note to me.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
like
that kind of was the point I was making.
That makes sense too.
Like, it's like, hey,
after 10 minutes of fart level jokes,
it never
It's kinda
ascended
old.
to, it never changed.
there was no real arc or anything for us to care about. So then all that was left was the same joke over and over again.
Right. More fart cola.
Well, just
Delicious.
the Freakos, the
fridge full of it.
the puppets are acting funny and wacky and maybe slightly dangerous.
But Brian, Shabadoo.
Shabadoo.
That's our new catchphrase.
That's me, Brian's
Oh my
catchphrase. You guys
God.
can't have it.
Oh,
Oh yeah, you're gonna hear
So
Shabadoo.
there's 3 puppets
Shabadoo.
that are the main.
IMDb does not have the robot's name. Brink, or whatever his name was. It doesn't say who voiced him.
Yeah. So I'm going to utilize what was done in one of the reviews. And, so it's Frankie Freako, Dottie Dunko, and Doink Bardo. Those are the names.
okay.
And
Shabadoo.
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 It's just sight gags and the design of those characters. They were, I think, intentionally making it as silly as possible because of all of the movies that preceded it that tried to be serious about their horror with stupid little puppets. And they're like, they know that they don't look believable at all in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And the character believes them. He takes the situation a little serious, not at first, but then he's convinced when he gets shot in the neck. And you're just
Right.
like, oh, you really are violent,
Yeah.
I'd say it's the wacky horror comedies version of Michael Caine in the Muppet Christmas Carol, where his take was to take the other Muppets as seriously as other actors.
Right.
And that's why that movie works so well. He's fully Scrooge and the Muppets are all Muppets.
Yeah, I mean, and that helps to blend the world of having puppets in a live action film that sells the action in a believable way.
Yeah.
And that they attempt to do that here too. I think
In this
like,
movie,
yeah,
I think they lean
like-
more to the cartoon vibes.
Well,
they make him a cartoon a little bit.
This movie is like silly. Actually, the protagonist might be the most silly of them all in some respects.
He refuses to swear.
Yeah.
Even after being shot in the neck, he's like, "Oh darn it! Oh heck!"
Oh heck.
He's wearing a sexy outfit towards the later.
Towards
half
the
of
end,
movie.
very Zardoz inspired.
But that's
Yes.
after he pivots and changes and evolves as a character.
when he finishes
When
his
he
hero's
joins forces.
when he
with the
finishes his
Freakos.
hero's journey,
Yes.
you mean?
So
which is the one character development that happens in this film.
yeah, so the Freakos are only there for a couple of days because they came from their world
like
into this
the weekend.
world.
It's a
They're
weekend.
there for the weekend.
Yes.
Because
What a freaky weekend.
Yeah, they're doing the weekend, and he's like, yeah, we're going to have to go back, and they're like, oh, don't answer the phone because if you do that, we have to go back.
Travel is via telephone lines.
That's
Yeah.
why I'm your telecommunications expert. You cannot actually travel with through your telephone.
Well, not now because it's cell phones.
You have heard of the internet, right? The internet used to use your telephone line.
It's a series of-
Yeah, called a modem.
Yeah.
Some of us had AOL back in the day.
You've got mail.
I have mail. Oh, there's nothing in my mailbox. Aaron tricked me again.
Yeah. Maniacal rock and roll goblin. Is that a good phrase that we could call these?
I'm gonna get that
creatures by?
tattooed
but
in
he's
old
also-
gothic on my chest.
But he's also part demon because you can show a crucifix to
plot
him
spoil.
and he explodes in
Is it? They never
flame.
explain it.
No, they don't.
No.
That's one of many things about this movie that will remain unexplained.
Unknown.
Well, hopefully, this makes enough money to get Frankie Freako's Christmas.
Well, I mean, they need to make a sequel because
No, they don't.
now that the wife and the husband understand each other's needs and where they came from more,
We need to see when their kid interacts.
Yes, I know.
They're going to have a child, and the child is going to be like the biggest square of all
The
of them.
child's gonna be a rubber puppet.
That child, no, the child is going to be like going to not be able to swear or do anything either. That child's going to grow up to be an engineer who can't say heck.
And that's when they see the
Darn it.
OnlyFans for a Frankie Freako or
God.
Frankie Freakhead.
So I did want to say, like, there's a lot in this movie that's of a certain era, like, you know, the phone chat thing, the yellow pages.
They kept
ordering pizza in that way.
The size of the phone, the televisions,
All of the computers,
computer monitors, and the printer.
The printer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not evergreen.
Right.
Even the vehicles are pretty well dated.
Right. I'm wondering, you know, so we all understood the references, and we all understood like that time in history. If we were to show this film to a random 20-year-old,
Oh, they would not understand any of it.
They would like it even less.
So-
Depending on what they follow, like entertainment wise, they might like the comedy, but not understand any of the tech they're using.
The references just go over the head.
Now, there is apparently like VHS horror is a genre within the horror community. So they're aware of what a VHS is from that standpoint. I don't think there's anything in this movie that would help with that. I don't think they understand like the tech, the phone line, all that stuff.
So the audience for
They
this,
know how to party.
the audience for this film is like you, like you're like old
I
enough.
might be. I'm
You're-
40 this year. I
you're-
might be the youngest age that would get it. Maybe 38.
Right.
Like would be the youngest that would get all the tech and all the vibes and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
because
you
you
know-
actually had a landline growing up. You
I
know
sure
what that
did.
is.
I
Right.
still remember my phone number. It's and then a big long bleep for that deadline that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, I think you make a good point. It kind of dates itself and it feels like a genuine passion project. And I don't care who watches this. I want to make it. Hopefully, it finds an audience.
Right.
And I kind of miss that from Hollywood. Since DVD sales aren't a thing, you don't see that as often anymore.
You know, I do want to say, like, I agree with that. You know, somebody had, I'm going to say, artistic vision.
Yeah.
Somebody had an artistic vision for this film, and they made it. They did it, and you know, good on them. Congratulations. It's not the right film for me.
It's not for everybody.
it is a holiday
I found
film,
it
though.
too. I found
It ends up taking place at Christmas.
Yeah,
or a week
right.
before.
To me, it was
Bonkers.
too silly. There were too many things that I had like too much suspension of disbelief. But then also like many instances, like after the first 10 minutes of, you know, like we were saying before, the fart jokes didn't pivot and change into anything else. It was like that was all there was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when it lost me.
wasn't a lot of levels to this. It was kind
Right.
of one note
Yeah.
to me.
That's absolutely fair.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it does it. It repeats itself. You have concerns that the main protagonist Connor is like, what is he going to do? Like he was trying to run away, he was trying to fight them, and then suddenly flips the 180 and is like,
We're allies.
"We're
You know
allies
what?
now. Let's
We're-
party."
We were saying younger audiences wouldn't understand this film, but I think if you got like a middle schooler, they're gonna love those fart jokes, and they will be here for it. They will watch all the
That
way
might
through.
be what gets them into watching the whole way through.
Yeah,
And then maybe get them into like
Yeah.
1980s schlock.
and then they'll start watching Gremlins and the other
God,
films.
Gremlins
that
is so good.
right,
That,
yeah.
that woman blows up a gremlin in a microwave. It's amazing.
I was
Old lady.
traumatized by that. That was horrible.
That movie, along with two others, is why there's a PG-13 now.
Yeah. So if you've ever seen
So
any
go
of the,
watch Gremlins.
Yeah.
So
we did an episode for that.
one of the things that wasn't mentioned in this is so there's a whole series of films called Leprechaun
Oh yeah.
that has characters that are very similar to this. His mouth doesn't really move when he talks, and which is real similar to this. Their mouths kind of
Now,
move a little bit.
The
It's
big
kinda-
difference is that was played by a little person in makeup.
yes.
That's
Whereas
the,
this
that's
is
the
just
key.
a puppet.
Again, that's
And
the key difference.
This
But-
is a puppet.
yeah, but that was Dan's right. That is a series where a little monster is terrorizing everybody.
I mean, you see
And,
them on
and
there
that
with,
one
like,
had
Chucky.
four
Yeah, that was
four films in the series, I
Leprechaun,
believe.
Leprechaun 2, Leprechaun the Hood, Leprechaun in Space.
Were any of the Leprechauns Christmas movies?
I don't think
there
so.
might have been though.
They
There
might
have
not.
been a
Well,
reference
I don't think
to
they
it.
ever take place in March. Honestly, it's just
So-
a leprechaun just causing havoc.
I'm going to say I was blindsided by the Christmas connection at the end, like the last 20
I
minutes
was-
in Act 5 of this movie.
Yeah.
Right when my interest was waning, they hit me with the Christmas thing. I was back on board.
So I'm kind of thinking of like other films where there's a surprise holiday tie-in, you know, like Die Hard.
Yeah, because it's not there's nothing really holiday themed, but it takes place at Christmas.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Gremlins is technically during Christmas.
Right.
There's other movies, and I'm blanking on them now. Dan's.
This is why I ambushed you with the question.
This is
Yeah.
Well, I have one immediate answer, but it's not as fun. But Cats and Dogs, I thought was a holiday movie, and it's not.
Oh.
It just it takes place near a business where they make Christmas tree flock.
Home Alone
Oh yeah.
takes
Yeah,
place
it
during
plays
Christmas.
Carol of the Bells. I love that song.
Yep. Edward Scissorhands
Is that a Christmas movie?
takes place. Part of it takes place during Christmas.
You're going to
watch
say
it.
Nightmare Before Christmas next. I
We
know.
should watch that for the podcast.
I mean, there's
remember that
Elf and Polar Express and
But
Scrooge.
those are
Yeah,
pretty-
but those
those are
are
pretty
like
obvious.
I
clearly
feel like
Yeah.
bad Santa. You know what you're getting with that.
Yeah. Although,
kinda.
does it Bad Santa go to Christmas? It's all the lead up to Christmas when Mall Santas are required. It's also
Are you
really.
going to argue Bad Santa is not a Christmas film?
No, I'm arguing that it's a great movie we should watch for the podcast, but Dan won't let me.
Oh, Dan, why are you keeping us from? Is it Billy Bob Thornton?
Well, it's
who's-
because I just now said it, and I never brought it up
You,
before.
you do
Oh.
know that Rocky and Rocky 4 take place during Christmas.
Really?
Unintentional Christmas film.
That's
Okay.
fun.
I mean, then you have like Bad Santa and all the other Santa movies.
Aaron's
Yeah,
a
but
bad
that's
Santa.
intentional.
Yeah, that's intentional.
Yeah, I said Bad Santa 2 minutes ago. None of you guys agreed with me.
Aaron,
but
I agreed.
Anything that has Christmas or Xmas in the title, you know.
How about
it's
something with Hot Frosty in the title?
Oh, there we go. We've been talking about that.
Yeah, moving to beer. What beer pairs well with a snowman?
With the most incredible
make a
ab
snowman.
structure you've ever seen in a human.
Yeah, snowman that works out.
No,
A
those are
couple-
literally sculpted.
A couple of other ones. The Ref, which is an interesting breaking and entering film that has a comedian in the lead.
Like Home Alone?
No, he breaks into a house and the couple just bickers the whole time.
Home Alone
And
is a
he's
breaking
like-
and entering film. The whole thing.
And those criminals bicker the whole movie. I think you're saying the same. You're
It's like a remake of the same
It's the
movie.
same
Dan,
movie,
stop
yeah.
shutting Aaron down.
Grumpy Old Men, which is kind of a funny
No.
old people comedy. It takes place during Christmas.
I never realized.
I did not realize.
I was just so taken by how grumpy they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's no old people in Frankie Freako. It's all young hip cats and freaks.
And people with a ponytail.
Does this film pass the Bechtel test?
No,
No.
the two women that are in it. One
Well,
talk
one
to
doesn't
each
even
other.
say
No,
anything.
the cowgirl and the wife talk to each other about being friends. They don't technically talk about a man.
That's a single sentence. That's not a conversation.
That's true. That's true. They almost make it, and then they fail.
They almost make it through the Bechdel. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It feels like an 80s song, right? We almost made
But
it through the Bechdel test.
That kind of makes it more of an homage to 80s films, really.
Women didn't have roles, yeah.
Yeah.
Iron Man 3
Well, I knew that
took
because
place.
Dan, I could tell you that's a Christmas movie because Shane Black directed it. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang's a Christmas movie.
Rare Exports, which we did a podcast episode.
That's a great
for.
movie. I'd
But
rather.
that's definitely a Christmas
Fun.
film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would rather rewatch Rare Exports.
Hey, let's watch it
over
again
the-
tonight.
Actually, I was thinking of all of the films that we've watched, and we mentioned this kind of as we were watching it. You know, which films would we rather rewatch as opposed to Frankie Freako?
This movie again.
And I would say Old Gods or Mad God.
Mad
God,
God.
which I always can't remember the name of, and I describe it as the poop tone poem.
I mean, there is a lot of poop people happening.
There is a lot of
There
poop
is.
people having in the film. I think I'd rather watch Mad Gods again rather than Frankie Freako.
I don't know. I mean, each has its merits. Really for different reasons.
Dan's fully just scrolling through his. I can
I'm
see in the
doom
reflection of his
scrolling through it.
glasses. He's got an
Like,
incognito mode on.
I'm in the 200s at this point, and everything has the word.
Dan's just feeling contrary. Anything I say, he's like, "No, Aaron, you're wrong," and I'm going to tell you why.
Well,
Yeah.
Aaron, I think you're correct.
Thank you.
So-
So you would watch this movie again happily.
This film was
I would
enjoyable.
watch this with another friend. I wouldn't watch this alone. This is
Okay.
definitely something I'd watch.
Yeah, you want to have a couple beers and a couple friends.
right?
Ideally,
It's-
friends who are into it.
Puppet Master
Yeah.
franchise, a lot of them are holiday themed because they're gifts. God, I'm flinging my arms around again. No, Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys, which is actually a really good one. Yeah, it's like his creations, they fight demonic toys.
That's incredible.
it's amazing. I'm telling you, man. They're out there.
You know what's
You
actually
just have
better
to dig
than
around.
than you think it would be? Jingle All the Way.
Huh?
Pretty fun.
Was that the Tim Allen?
No, that was the Arnold Schwarzenegger Sinbad movie. Where they're trying to get
Oh.
the action man, the rocket man.
Yeah,
with
that
the-
sounds horrible, but I bet it could have real heart and be real charming.
It's got heart. It feels like a realistic Christmas where like roads are paved. There's not a lot of there's snow, but like it's already out of the way.
Uh-huh.
It's commercial, but because he's getting action figure,
Okay.
it's fine. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think
So,
one thumb up
one-
for Frankie
yeah,
Freako.
one thumb up.
And a half thumb.
It's
You
thank
can't
you,
go
Dan.
up or down. I'm halfway with you because
It's
I
silly.
understand what it's doing.
This movie's silly. This movie's dumb. This movie's not actually that great, but it's a fun watch.
It is.
It's For me, it's like Tremors. It's the movie equivalent of eating like a bag of potato chips.
Wait,
Just have a good time.
the Julia Roberts movie that we watched about the end of the world. I would rather rewatch this than that one. I can't remember the name of it. Where the plane goes down for no
all
reason.
the deer.
Yeah, and all the deer. Like, what was that called? I can't.
That's horrible. We can't remember the names.
No,
of the
it's
movies
probably
we've watched.
telling of the movie.
Actually, yeah, we
Flophouse, who's the podcast host for voices were in this movie, they covered it, and they were also like, I don't remember a lot about this movie.
Yeah,
It's just
that
not
that
memorable.
movie was also boring, but I didn't fall asleep.
Yeah,
He also didn't eat a big, delicious waffle sandwich.
Well, that's true.
yeah. So we did actually enjoy
Have
some beer,
and they were good.
And I had a delicious fart cola.
they were actually quite good.
These beers were great.
Unlike the fart cola in the movie.
I think we can all agree on the beers.
Yeah, so this is the point that we're going to start talking about beers momentarily because we got to make it brief.
Because we
and to
like
the
beers
point.
and we like to party.
leave the world behind. By the way,
Leave the
Julia
world
Roberts.
behind.
Yeah,
the world behind.
Yeah.
Where she played the
very
world's-
mediocre.
She played the world's
at
biggest
best.
Karen.
Yeah. So we went out and grabbed some food before the podcast and then stopped at Beer Mongers down in Southeast Portland on 11th.
Yeah,
And
great
Which
little
I
spot.
forget how great their selection is.
They rotate through their stuff pretty quick.
I was
So
about to
They've got
always
some interesting
have-
things.
They have stuff you're not going to find anywhere else. They have stuff they don't have at John's Marketplace. So I would say if you want that kind of one-off weirdness,
Yeah.
they have a little bit more of that.
Which, frankly, that's a great way to describe Frankie Freako as one-off weirdness.
Yeah, they have one beer engine beer available most of the time. That's usually an English mild. Or
Now,
a
Dan,
bitter
for
of
the
some
listeners, what's Beer Engine?
sort. So it's
I don't think we've talked about that on the
Chugga,
podcast
chugga,
yet.
chugga, chugga, chugga.
so a beer engine does not make
No, it's a train
noise.
engine gets hammered.
Yeah. So for those that have been to England, you would find most pubs, they have to grab a handle and pull the handle to pull the beer out of the cask, which is sitting somewhere nearby. So it's kind of a gravity fed engine kind of thing. So you're pulling through suction beer out of the keg versus having it being pressurized in the keg with CO2 or nitrous oxide or a mix or whatever. A beer engine, typically they're flat. They taste very flat and very like there's no carbonation. It's just whatever natural carbonation is left over from the yeast when it does its fermentation.
I mean, originally, all beers were that style.
Correct. And so
yeah.
forced carbonation and using CO2 is a way more recent adjustment that was made towards beer production when they started bottling and canning and distributing a lot more.
Uh-huh.
What you would get most places, you didn't get draft beer during the Wild Wild West back in the 1800s. That didn't exist.
The key thing was just spirits because it
Correct.
keeps longer. It's easier to
Correct.
drink.
Well, I think beer brewing also requires a cooler temperature than they could always achieve.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, they had ice houses and stuff, but like you couldn't brew in an
That's
ice
why
house.
a lot of places would do it in the basement, right? Because it's
Correct.
lower
Cellar-
and cooler.
Well, also and to hide it from the authorities and the spouse.
Yeah, but that's I'm going for
Well, yes.
historical and less fun.
But cellar temperature is still around 58, 60 degrees.
Right. Correct. So they have that kind of beer available. Definitely, if you're in Portland, check them out if you haven't already. Amazing staff that will like help you find what you want. They out of their draft beers, those rotate really fast. They usually have a cider or two. They usually have a sour beer, the
they
dark
had
beer.
a great.
some-
I was taught a Graf beer, which is like a beer cider mix
yeah.
that you and I got, Aaron and I got.
Yeah, I had that as well, and it was really nice because there was apple. It was not overpowering.
Yeah, it wasn't
There
that really
was
thin.
hop and bitter. It was not overpowering. It was a nice mix.
Yeah, not too much bright flavor. There was color there, but not like Aaron said, overpowering.
And I would say too, like the other kind of like beer fruit mix I'm thinking of is like a Radler, but like this was not sweet like a Radler. This was subtle. It was a little sour. It was really pleasant.
But we should save our beer reviewing for the ones we had.
the ones we had
I just
with
realized we
this
got
movie.
really in depth on these delicious craft beers.
Oh yeah, I hear we were just talking about beer. Oh, yeah, I'll talk about this beer too.
So the first one that we tried is called Smithereens English Bitter from Obelisk Beer Company, which is out of
Smithereens, what a
Astoria.
great name.
They I don't know how much of their production has moved from the formerly what was known as the Commons Brewing and then Modern Times.
Oh, Modern Times.
When Modern Time closed, it's now Living House you can get Living House beer on site. It's there at 7th and Seventh and Belmont.
Is that
Southeast?
Oh, so that's further north than from Distillery Row. It's
Correct.
yeah. Okay.
And they have Obelisk. I've been to the actual location in Astoria a couple of times. The first time right after they had opened, and they had nothing hooked up. They had the tanks, but everything was just sitting there because they were doing their production here in Portland. And the second time, you could tell the tanks had been used, but I don't know how much of the production is there on site. It's a super small nano brewery that does all self-distribution at this point. And so this was an English bitter at 4.7%, 15 IBU. Is there anything on the can you'd like to read?
English style best bitter, all ale brewed with English malt and Fuggle hops. What is a Fuggle?
It's like a Freako, but normal.
Yeah. So Fuggle hops are a traditional British hop that's produced there in England.
Why is it called Fuggle?
That's
Yeah,
just the name.
Okay.
Down to Fuggle Rock. I did not write a song.
It's
Brian.
like
I told you I
Fraggle.
would. Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
man.
Down to Fraggle mops.
I told Brian I was going to write a whole song about it, and I never did
So
it.
Fuggles are like a below.
They love
6
Dowser sticks.
alpha acidity.
Shut up.
So Fuggle is one of those you're adding it.
Dan is
for-
sciencing.
They're added for a mild flavor edition, tea-like edition,
Tea.
dry tea, leafy.
I mean, I got some tea on this.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
and,
Like
and-
herbal,
and then
herbaceous kind
And
of.
then you're going to get a little bit of aromatics depending on how old it is.
I don't usually love a tea flavor in a beer.
Yeah.
But I feel like with this, it kind of worked. Although the bitter you make, not to, like toot your horn too much or whatever, but I like the bitter you make a little bit better than this.
Yeah.
This was good, but it felt a little thin, could have used a little more like oomph to it.
Yeah, it's a little thinner. It's not necessarily attenuated all the way out, which is maybe what they were going for. So that means like they stopped the fermentation. They didn't let it ferment all the way out, where you can just let it sit there forever and the yeast will eventually stop on their own.
So probably silly question. How do you stop fermentation? Like you change the
You take the yeast
conditions
out.
of the, okay, that makes sense.
There's chemicals you can use to stop it. There's temperature you can use to stop it. You can cold
That's why
crash it.
I assumed it was a temperature thing.
Yeah, you can take the beer and you can just cold crash, meaning you drop the temperature on it really quickly, and that'll stop the
kills
yeast
it?
from doing it. It doesn't kill it; it just stops it. They sleep,
Like
Okay.
the thing.
and then you pull the yeast off, and then you get the beer to the alcohol percent you want, and that's where it is.
Would you ever heat the beer again to kill the yeast?
That's called pasteurizing.
Oh.
You kill the bugs in it, and any beer
Is that ever done?
at big
All the
production
time?
scale
Okay.
quality? Yes. So
Great question.
anything you buy in a can that's from a major distributor, that's AB InBev, so Coors, Bud, any of those are all pasteurized beers.
So they
So
kill the yeast
They can
with
sit
heat.
at room temperature, and you don't really have to worry about them going bad because
That
there's
makes
nothing in
sense,
it
yeah.
that's been pasteurized like you would pasteurize
Everything's dead.
Your Pastweiser.
milk. Yes. So this
That was really funny, Aaron.
this beer had a little bit of I know somebody had mentioned a little bit of tanginess to it, or like a green apple, or it wasn't necessarily super clean in its flavor profile. The tea leaf thing, yeah, if it's not your jam, this is just a really light English mild. It or bitter beer. Milds and bitters are really similar. They just have different sets of ingredients. The malt bill's a little different, and the hop profile is going to be a little bit more focused on one or the other, be it a tea-like or just an herbal-like. I think they did a really amazing job on this beer. It's got some balance to it that I appreciate. It's not super sweet. It doesn't actually have a lot of sweetness to it, but it does dry out on the back. So
You would say this is a very good example of a bitter.
yes,
Okay.
a standard bitter, you're going to catch something like this in a pub in England from a small production.
Cool.
A lot of small breweries that are around England, they produce their own. It's all on a beer engine. This would be good on a beer engine, I think, because it would emphasize that kind of tea, low carbonation quality. It's going to
Oh, that's
taste
a
a little
good
better.
point.
Yeah, so
But
that's
since we had out of a can, it was
Yeah.
to some level carbonated.
correct. And it's going to affect your tasting of it because it's effervescent. It's dancing on the tongue. It's hitting the taste buds differently because it's got carbonation on it.
I feel like we'd all agree. I think this didn't quite match the movie.
Not as well as our second thing.
Yeah. This movie's very big and silly and broad, and this beer's pretty subtle. Like
Yeah.
more of like honestly, like a romantic comedy might work for this movie. For this
or
beer.
or just a drama because it's
Yeah.
not gonna distract you from the film.
Exactly. It's
Right.
not going to draw your attention. You just, ooh, this tastes good. And, oh, there's good drama.
And
happening.
in this film, there's so much going on
Yeah.
that you don't even. You could be drinking water and wouldn't even
I
notice.
did finish mine pretty quick and put
Yeah,
the
I
glass
did
down,
too.
thinking I'm not going to ask for more. I'm going to wait till I.
So the thing is like we the intention was name and
And going off
Can
the can art, and I'll post on the Instagram. Like, it's beautiful can art.
Yeah,
it's
got
amazing.
like a skull on it and stuff. It's kind of creepy.
The skull might match better for like a esoteric horror movie, honestly.
Yeah.
But again, the beer goes better with the drama.
Good beer, but not this one.
Mm-hmm,
Not this movie. I'd agree.
Should we go into the second one? Or
Yeah,
do you
sure.
wanna cover
The second one
more?
was
Beer number
called Endless
Yeah.
Depths as a sour beer, Fruited Gose,
beautiful can
from
art?
Abomination Brewing, which is out of North Haven, Connecticut, I believe.
Whoa, East Coast beer.
5.8%. This has prickly pear, calamansi, mango, and black lava salt.
You just took all the marketing copy that was on the can.
Well, say it,
sorry.
but cooler.
Yeah.
Gose style ale with prickly pear, calamansi, mango, and black lava sea salt.
Here, I'll do a copy as a Freako.
Oh, please
No,
don't.
please
No.
don't.
Yeah.
So
We're
calamansi
done with that film.
Yeah,
Is-
nobody wants me to do that voice.
it is a cross between a kumquat and also like I think it's a mandarin orange. It's a
Really?
small little citrus you can find in the Philippines and Taiwan, other parts of Southeast
Malaysia,
Asia.
Brunei.
That's so cool.
And so it's kind of intense citrus flavor. I'm going to call out their marketing person, though, as being very precious, maybe a little pretentious, though, because black lava sea salt, you're not going to be able to differentiate in a beer from just sea salt or table salts, let alone,
Yeah, I
Hawaiian pink salt.
I think
yeah.
lava's supposed to add a certain acidity to it or some kind of like
It's
spice or kick. We didn't
Yeah,
catch
but it's
that.
coloration.
Salt is
Yeah.
salt.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not all salts are created equal. It depends
Flake
if it's
salt is
flaked or not.
delicious
It-
and light and no bitterness.
So there are
As a former Jacobson worker.
yes, there's a lot of salt knowledge at the table. Solid,
Well, there's a fair
and
amount.
we have a friend who also still works for that salt production company.
Let's get him on the line.
We're about to be assaulted here. I can
We-
tell.
you're going to get assaulted.
Wah, wah, wah.
So salt in and of itself is not consistent across every place that it's formed because of the environment that it's from.
And they have different molecules of different elements bonded.
They're going to taste
Yeah.
and look different.
Some people
every
would call
single
this
place it's made.
impurities. There are different impurities.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's
So
more scientific.
when you see the word iodized table salt,
Right.
that means it's been chemically treated and bleached, and it's going to
Right.
be neutral from the flavor profile and taste like quote unquote salt.
Right.
Versus something that hasn't been iodized, that is raw ingredient, and it's just
Like-
going to
like-
produce.
Like straight from just the
But-
flavor. More
Yeah.
the flavor than anything.
Yeah.
but
So-
this particular beer is not a real salty beer.
Not
It's
really.
not, no.
It's the
It-
fruits are the strongest flavor,
Yeah,
honestly.
it's
Yeah.
all mango front to back.
Yep.
I mean this,
Yeah.
And,
this
and sour.
So we did pour out the first one into bottles or from the can into,
into
glasses,
glasses.
and it was clear, light colored.
Mm-hmm.
The second one we poured and it was super like
Orange honey.
burnt orange, a milky burnt orange.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Phrase
if
that
Brian
I'm gonna
hadn't
use.
said how bright that tasted, I was concerned going in, like sipping mine. Like, I don't know if I'm going to like that. Ooh, okay, Brian likes it. I'll give it a try.
really mangoey on the nose, super zingy.
Yep.
Yes.
Really, that acidity
Yeah.
that came
Yeah, yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
The calamansi.
The calamansi really hits hard, and it pairs really well with the mango because the mango is just more of a rich flavor
Right.
versus that zip. So you get that zip, and then that mango,
It's kind of like a sweet, sour, lemon, lime, kind of almost, there's a balance
Yeah.
to it.
I would say that someone who's not a big fan of drinking beer might give this a try.
Yeah.
Now, Dan, would you suggest a light salt rim on your glass before to go with this, or just nothing, just as is?
I would do as is. If you're
Yeah,
an
okay.
experienced Gose sour drinker, then you could probably hit it with something.
Gotcha.
Or even just drop some into it. But you're again going to affect the level of bitterness if you
Right.
add salt to
I was
it versus
just curious. I was talking about the salt had me thinking,
yeah,
would this something
a
be something
finishing
you do?
salt on the rim. Yeah, because you're going to accentuate that salt flavor versus just adding anti bitterness to it.
Right. But that's more of an expert drinker level, like someone who knows how to taste it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
makes
the
sense.
expectations are is that Goses typically have salt made in or added to them at some point, and that is providing a balance to the level of sharp bitter acidity that they typically are made with. So the salt is there purposely. I mean, it's like you don't want like a Berliner Weiss doesn't have salt in it, and it's tart
Right.
as heck.
That makes
It's-
sense.
It's like just sucking on that lemon directly.
This actually, in the baking world too, it's used that salt will suppress bitter flavors. And that's why if you have like a salt caramel, it'll accentuate, or like a sea salt chocolate, it'll accentuate the sweetness of the chocolate and the sugar that's in there, and suppress or balance some of the bitterness with a dark chocolate that's included.
Like homemade chocolate chip cookies, where it's like proper cacao chocolate or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you put some sea salt on it after. I was waiting for it, and I love you for it.
Sprinkle some salt on the top of that, and that salt will help to suppress
Yeah.
the bitterness.
Yeah.
If you burn your food and it tastes a little bitter, like you can sprinkle
Throw it
some
out
salt.
and order Domino's.
You can salt it, and that might bring it back over the edge where it's going to
Not
be
so
all right
bad.
again.
Yeah. So I think this beer went really well with the film.
Yeah, this
'cause it was
beer
just
absolutely
sharp.
matched the vibe of the
Yeah.
film. Like
It was-
bright,
yes, I
weird.
agree.
Sharp,
Even the dark
bright.
scenes were well lit. Like, the whole thing was just vibrant and weird.
Yeah.
And this beer tastes vibrant and weird. I love it.
Yeah.
What's weird, like I loved the beer.
Mm-hmm.
The movie fell
That's
flat
fair.
with me. Like,
Well, but this beer
Well, it was a
kind of cut through the film so you could notice it and
Mhm,
experience trying the beer.
well, if the movie is flat, it's probably on a movie engine.
wow, that was amazing, and I feel dumber.
Same.
All right. I think we have one thumb. Well, we have a 1.5.
One and a half thumb. It's a very silly movie. If you know you and your friends like dumb crap, go ahead and find this somewhere and watch it.
It's a holiday film.
It's technically a holiday film.
Yeah,
It's very
But
silly.
your sweetie won't watch it with you.
No, not a date
No.
movie. Unless your date is into this stuff, then
Maybe
go for
she's
it.
secretly a freako too.
or he or they.
Oh,
I was
they
saying
could
the-
be
Yes.
Freako.
24, baby.
That's why I said
Right.
sweetie.
Right,
Yeah.
sweetie.
Sweetie is gender neutral, like y'all.
Super
Well
secret
done,
Freako.
well done. I should
Brian-
say yes.
Brian's our woke
He's-
expertise.
But I was hearkening back to the spouse in the film being secretly a freako.
Oh,
Yeah.
plot spoil.
Whoa, way to pull a Dan. I love it.
Dang.
It's a holiday miracle, guys.
The film
it
is
is.
ruined.
Aaron's
I know. I was cheating at board games earlier today, just like Dan too. Today's opposite day.
It is opposite day. But you
Is that why
won.
I'm so
You kept
sober?
winning. Aaron keeps winning. Yeah, no, we're still sober, so we need to get on that. Let's thank the audience for listening and coming along on this
Thank
wonderful
you.
journey of drinking some beers and talking about movies. And
So you're going to tell us now the opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts, and
Correct.
we have no commercial affiliations. Don't
With
sue
anyone.
us, please. Everything's fair use.
And if you shabba do, you shabba don't. Brian, what's that
If
mean?
you don't hydrate, you'll dehydrate.
Freaky.
Oh my gosh, I'm so mixed up because
So
Blake.
freaky.
The ritual is that Blake says that. I'm so confused.
I did say it, but in Freako language.
Oh,
Shabba-do and Shabba-don't.
Aaron rolled his eyes and he said, "Oh, what a dad move."
All right. Thanks for listening and hanging out, everyone. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye, friends.
Thanks for listening.